John, I just tried to call you.
You did.
Yeah. Sorry, I didn't connect with you today.
I was under a crawl space doing some work and then installing a new microwave.
Is that literally or figuratively?
Literally.
I just tried to call you.
You did.
Yeah. Sorry, I didn't connect with you today.
I was under a crawl space doing some work and then installing a new microwave.
Is that literally or figuratively?
Uh-oh.
So we have a feedback loop, so we all need to put our mutes on.
You did.
Yeah. Sorry, I didn't connect with you today.
I was under a crawl space doing some work and then installing a new microwave.
Is that literally or figuratively?
Uh-oh.
So we have a feedback loop, so we all need to put our mutes on.
You did.
Are we functional?
We're still not live though, are we? No.
We are live.
Oh, I don't have that indication on mine. You have that?
Yes,
Okay.
I do. Yeah, we've
All
been
right.
live for about 5 minutes.
It's
You
not
have
showing
that,
up with
Muff?
us. Oops. All right. I hope we didn't get anything in there we don't want, folks. We're going to begin our meeting then of the Cook County Planning Commission. And the first thing I'm going to do is say sorry. Well, maybe it's a good thing. I don't have my copy of the official little COVID piece we read, but I'm going to read you the one that we print on the agenda, and it's online if you got to us through that way. But during the continued COVID-19 concerns, along with the governor's orders and Cook County emergency declaration, this public hearing is available only to participate through online interactive video conferencing and may be viewed in real time via live streaming through the Cook County website at www.cook.mn.us. That's www.cookmn.us. You may provide comments on any of the agenda items in writing through the Cook County Planning and Zoning email, although those really needed to be in prior to this time if you're going to send anything for these hearings. Or you may participate in the meeting directly through the following Zoom link. And there is a link there if you're on the county's website. The link is there for you to join this meeting if you have some testimony to give. So with that, we'll call this meeting of the Planning Commission of Cook County for May 12th to order. First order of business on our agenda is to approve our agenda, adopt the agenda for this evening, and approve the minutes of two Planning Commission meetings, both March 17th and April 14th. You've had the minutes and had time to review them. If someone, if there are no changes to those minutes, I would entertain a motion to adopt them.
I'll move that.
That would be the agenda and the minutes by Judy and
Yes.
John. Correct. Okay, and we'll do the rolls tonight, beginning with this one, the agendas. I'll call the roll for each vote so that there's a record in that manner of we voted. And Adam Treefel is absent. All right, and Jerry Henniker. Jerry is absent as well. Commissioner Machenbacher, you made the motion. How do you vote?
Aye. Aye.
Vote aye myself. Commissioner Laboda,
Aye.
Commissioner Schlote,
Aye.
and Commissioner Anderson. You there, Chuck?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, very good. We've adopted the agenda and approved both of those sets of minutes. Under new business, our first item is I'm gonna need help with your name, Jacob Lingang. Request for a conditional use permit to establish a dog kennel in the FAR 3 zone district adjacent to County Road 14 and Franks Way. Legal description is the east 594 feet of the northeast quarter of the northwest quarter, except the west 330 feet. Section 26, Township 62 North, Range 2 East, PID 54-226-2125. Mr. Lane.
Oh, my goodness. I'm sorry. I just had a
Yeah,
bear,
yeah. We're ready for you, Bill.
so I had to chase that away. I'm sorry, Mr. Chair. are we on Jacob Lyon?
Yep, you just introduced it and we're ready for you on that.
My
item.
apologies for that.
That's all right.
About wildlife, and that's kind of as wild as it gets right there. This is case 2021-2 CUP. I see Jacob is here this evening. He is looking for a dog kennel in the FAR 3 zone district. And in your packet, I hope you all had a chance to look at it because it includes both informative and depictions of the Lion Gang parcel, and even in the County Road 14 landscape, which is kind of critical to this. A kennel is defined in the Cook County zoning ordinance as any premises where 4 or more dogs over 6 months of age are kept or raised. We actually have our own little Cook County kennel ordinance. And I'll just go over some of the highlights of that so you're familiar as a prelude to your discussion. First is that all kennel operations that require a conditional use permit shall submit a facility operations plan with the conditional use permit application. The facility operations plan shall contain the following information: name of kennel operators, address, phone numbers, signature, and date. Type of kennel operation, that is breeding, rescue, or sled dogs. The number of dogs over 6 months of age to be permanently housed on the property. The number of dogs over 6 months of age to be temporarily housed on the property. And a site plan to include property location, acreage, and location of nearest neighbors within 600 feet. The location of kennel, including any alternate or temporary sites. Setback distances from kennel area to property lines, neighboring homes, wells, and any protected public waters. Any existing or proposed vegetative buffer strips. Waste management area, that is composting site, spreading area, or storage bin. Number 6 is location of wells and septic systems. And finally, location of dwellings on the property. That operations plan must also include a waste management plan and noise management or mitigation plan. And finally, description of supporting infrastructure such as nearest trail system. This is number 2 on the kennel ordinance. All kennel operations, including waste management areas, shall be set back a minimum of 100 feet from all wells in accordance with the state well code, Minnesota rules, chapter 4725, herein adopted by residents. Number 3, all kennel operation areas shall be set back a minimum of 100 feet from all adjoining properties, except that kennels may be set back closer to the property lines that abut state or federal properties. Number 4, a vegetative buffer shall be maintained at least 100 feet between any kennel operational area, including waste management areas and any protected waters or officially designated drainage ways that lead to protected waters. Moving on, the county board at its discretion may impose additional setbacks on new kennel operational areas on a case-by-case basis. In creating the site plan, the greatest distance from neighboring residences shall be considered by the applicant, encouraging a minimum setback distance of 600 feet from the closest residence. I also included the FAR 3 zone district criteria and also excerpts from the Cook County Land Use Guide Plan, which is really speaks to the mushing activities in Cook County and especially up in the County Road 14 area. And there are specific references to that in the Land Use Guide Plan, which are, and I think, I don't know if anyone, Charlie Laboda, were you on the kennel committee?
I was not on the kennel committee. I was on the guide plan committee.
Okay, so those functions are there at the following the advice and experience in Cook County, and the area was collectively known as Margaritaville for some reason. I guess there was some south of the border spirits involved with mushing at some point. And so that's the colloquial name that's includes the County Road 14 and the Franks Way landscape. So moving on to the Line Gang application considerations, the applicant proposes a 45 dog sled dog kennel on a 7.6 acre parcel purchased in 2019. The property lies south of County Road 14 and to the west of Franks Way within a broad landscape that supports several other kennels. The nearest residence is to the northwest of the Line Gang parcel. Jason and Malin Gesh did include comments, and as presented by the applicant would place that residence approximately 640 feet from the proposed dog yard. As suggested by the kennel ordinance, several issues warrant consideration during a kennel conditional use permit request. Those concerns primarily focus on environmental and quality of life impacts, and as such, any forwarding of the CUP request must address those concerns. The parcel itself is undeveloped, save for an under construction dwelling at the northern property boundary. At the southern boundary, hydrology increases significantly with surfacing and collection in several beaver ponds that ultimately serve as the headwater for a protected and channelized tributary to the Cadunce River. And that was depicted in one of the enclosures. And I hope you all had a chance to look at that. The applicant flagged proposed access to the kennel, and a land services site visit revealed sporadic wetland features along the flagged trail, which should be largely avoidable. Conversely, it appears the selected kennel yard is mostly within a wetland resource. Shifting the location of the yard outside of the wetland feature will likely conflict with the required 100-foot property line setbacks, which is already challenged given the 250-foot property width and the applicant's intent to house 45 dogs. The Cook County Land Use Guide Plan identifies multiple connections between mushing and the Cook County experience. The general area surrounding the Line Gang property and along County Road 14, as I mentioned, is colloquially referred to as Margaritaville and has a rich kennel and dog mushing history. In 2008, the Board of Commissioners approved a kennel request for an adjacent 5.39 acre parcel, doing so despite wetland issues on the property and proximity to non-kennel involved properties. That operation was never initiated and the property is now in different ownership. Establishing a 45 dog kennel on a narrow 7.6 acre parcel appears to push the spatial envelope. Adjustment to the yard location to accommodate resource protection will assuredly compromise property line setbacks, thereby warranting variance relief from the Board of Adjustment. Within land services, there is no kennel experience, but it does seem intuitive that each dog will require its own livable area, and we are not sure how that could be accommodated on a parcel that is effectively has a viable 50-foot swath for a dog yard compromised by wetlands and FAR 3 setbacks. While we appreciate the passion of the applicant, we also believe establishing the kennel incrementally is in the best interest of him, his dogs, and the residential landscape. Accordingly, we would advocate for the implementation of an interim use permit with the following conditions. 1, all land use parameters established by the Cook County Kennel Ordinance, including setback distances, buffers, well protection, noise, and environmental considerations, shall be incorporated into kennel operations. 2, prior to establishing the kennel yard, the applicant must conform to all Wetland Conservation Act criteria as established by Mitch Travis, Cook County's wetland and land use specialist. 3, no component of the yard may be closer than 100 feet from adjacent private property lines. 4, both north to south property lines shall be clearly demarcated with flagging prior to preparation of the access, kennel, and composting areas. 5, a berm or other acceptable impermeable barrier intended to impede surface flow shall be established downslope from the kennel area. 6, this interim use permit shall be reviewed by Land Services and the Planning Commission at the end of 2021 and 2022. 7, for the first 2 years of operation, the maximum number of dogs will be no greater than 20. 8, this interim use permit shall expire at the end of 2022. Thereafter, Mr. Leingang may apply for a new interim use permit or conditional use permit and may request an expansion of the number of dogs not to exceed 45. We sent out 13 letters of notification and received comments supporting the Leingang request from Adam Mella, Dr. Jennifer Frecking, and Odin Jorgensen. Oppositional comments were received from Jason and Malin Asby Gesh. Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Bill. Mr. Leingang, do you have any additional comments that you wanted to add to Bill's narrative prior to us opening this up to public commentary?
Can y'all hear me? This is my first time on Zoom.
Nope, you're fine. Go right ahead.
All right, cool. No, I don't have anything else to add. I mean, that sums up my hopes and dreams pretty contently.
I do note that you applied for a conditional use permit for 45 dogs. And what the staff is recommending is that we use an interim use permit for 2 years with a limit of 20 dogs. You understand that, or is that a reasonable thing for you? Do you agree to that?
I mean, I don't necessarily agree with that. No, I mean, I still think that all those conditions that were met or that were stated as part of getting the interim use permit. I don't see why I guess I don't understand why it would have to be an interim use permit instead of a conditional use permit.
It doesn't have to be, but that is the recommendation. That's you asked for one thing and something else is being recognized, and that's why I'm bringing that to your attention so that we recognize that as we go through the rest of this discussion. Just so I wanted that to be out in the open so that you don't understand that.
Oh yeah, copy. Yeah,
right.
Yeah.
Well, I'm going to open it up to public comment, and after that, we'll close the hearing and go to the board. And there could be that some of the board members will have questions for you at that point. Okay, you're fine with that? You've said what you need to say at this point?
Sounds good to me.
All right, very good. Thank you. Okay, at this point, then I will open the hearing to public comment. Anyone that wishes to speak to this request for a dog or kennel, I'm not sure what we call this, conditional use permit for this kennel on County Road 14 and Frank's Trail, now is your opportunity. If you wish to speak, I just ask you to begin by giving us your full name and address for the record.
Sure. I'd actually like to start. My name is Jason Gesh, and I live at 852 County Road 14. We've been there for 17 years now. First of all, I'd like to set the record straight. We haven't been Margaritaville since the 1990s. Back since 1976, we've only had one dog kennel on 14, Margaritaville. That all happened back on Franks Way at the end of Franks Way. And for the last year now, we've had 2 kennels on all of 14 and Franks Way. That'd be the Jorgensens and the Beals. Where I live is actually all residential. It has been for a long time, except for the Tim White kennel, which I guess has been without dogs for over a year now. But yeah, given the size of his lot and the topography of the lot, it's really concerning to us just because of the narrow width of that. There's a lot of data out right now about sound, and the Cook County Kennel Ordinance does mention specifically that it follows the 70-30 noise from the MPCA, the standard they set, and a lot of that data becomes problematic under 400 feet, and the legal measure is actually from your property line. It's not from a residence. I know a lot of places have indicated a residence as the standard, but in legal terms, it's actually from your property line. So the distance there, being it's only 100 feet or so, is kind of at best pretty sketchy for that. But having lived next to the lot for 17 years, I am fully aware of the topographies and the wetlands in there. And that's obviously also a concern as we like to hunt and fish back on that flowage. But anyway, I guess I'd make the point that the property that Bill had mentioned from 2008, that's actually to the east of Mr. Leingang's property, and that had been given a setback of 150 feet from the west line, and I would like to see that standard at least looked at. It would seem strange not to follow suit with that. But ultimately, I would like to use the rest of my public comment time to ask Mr. Leingang to respectfully with, what's
Sir,
that?
you can address the board, but don't address the applicant, please.
Okay, sure. I would like to address the board that I would like Mr. Leingang to, if at all possible, withdraw his request and consider trying to work with one of our dog musher neighbors down Frank's Way that is an established kennel. They're on a larger acreage. That's the other thing I'd like to point out. All former kennels have all been on at least 20-acre lots, and at least 2 of them have been on 80-acre lots. But 2 in particular, Arlie and Odin Jorgensen, are well respected in the area, and they're a half-mile distance from the residences in that area. And if we could get them on board, I would like to make a proposal that utilizes their existing dog pads that they have open.
You know,
And
sir, at this point, this is a hearing to talk about a permit on this particular piece of property.
Okay.
You're suggesting business arrangements and things that's just not part of what we're here to discuss tonight.
Okay, fair enough. But those would be neighbors that are supportive of him, and it would be a good fit for everybody involved. I just would hope that he would consider that. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else that wants to comment on this CUP permit? Now would be your opportunity. Anyone else in the public?
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Want to give me your name and address for the record, please?
My name is Angela Sweedman. Do you need the spelling?
Yes.
Sweedman.
Yeah, all right, thank you.
And my address is 821 County Road 14.
Okay, thank you.
First of all, I'd just like to say thank you for taking the time to hear my concerns. I guess at this point, I have more questions than actual facts to present. And from what I read from the paperwork prior to the meeting, the county has many of the same concerns that I do, like the similar concerns. I feel like it's important to share that I am a dog lover. Like I am a dog person, and I think that 7.5 acres, in my very non-professional opinion, but I believe it is not enough space for a kennel of 40 dogs. And actually, the correction is his paperwork said 45 dogs. I just think that his lot is too narrow. It's too skinny and that would be pretty cramped even without the water quality issues that arise from trying to get rid of the waste from all of those 45 dogs. On the point of water quality, it's my understanding that this lot sits at, and the county recognizes this, at an important part of the network of wetlands that feeds into the Caduntz River. And I'm concerned that polluting the water is a danger to the residents with I should say the residents with wells in the property abutting. That would be namely the Geshes, that abuts the proposed kennel lot. From what I understand from reading the considerations, like the county's considerations, page 7, paragraph 7, this property is too small and narrow to meet the county's existing setbacks and distances for the wetland. And I think that about sums up my concerns. And thank you for, to the members for your considerations in this matter.
Yeah, you're welcome. Thank you for your comments. Others that wish to add testimony to to this hearing about the Jacob Langgang request for CUP for a dog yard on County Road 14 and Franks Way. Anyone else?
I would like to make a comment.
All right, can you give me your name and address for the record, please?
Lacey Kimball, 821 County Road 14.
Thank you.
For my comment, I would like to reiterate part of what Jason, first off, my husband and I have lived here for over 16 and a half years. We haven't quite hit the 17-year mark just yet. Over 16 and a half years, we have a family here, we had children here, and like Jason said, this has not been Margaritaville since the 90s. My children did not get born into, have not been raised in Margaritaville. There is only 2 existing kennels on all of this 14 area. And if the very end of Franks Way is Margaritaville, that is not lumping County Road 14 into Margaritaville and Dogmusherville, because that is not the culture right in this area anymore. We kind of have a little family residential area, and then further down 14 at Franks Way is more of the Dogmusher area.
Thank you. Anything else you'd like to add?
Other strong concerns about the noise, very strong concerns about the noise. And that's about it.
Very good, thank you. Anyone else that wishes to comment on this CUP request? Anyone else? Hearing none, I'm going to close the public portion of this hearing, and we will turn to commissioners for comments or questions, thoughts.
I have a couple of questions for Bill. If this conditional use permit were granted, and I would really, from what I've read and seen and been over the paperwork a lot, wasn't able to make it out there. It seems like 20 dogs is maybe perhaps even a stretch. Would that be a fair statement, Bill?
That's a great question, Commissioner Anderson, and it's hard to tell. I mean, you know, I don't have any kennel experience, and I know that when I have visited the kennels in the area, that space doesn't seem to be a compromised value. You know, and so what we often try to do in this situation is create what we believe to be a reasonable compromise with, you know, landscape constraints and what is allowed and advocated for in the land use guide plan and the ordinance. And that's what we've tried to do here. That's why you make the decision. We just provide information.
The second question I have actually regards the wetlands. If I read the proposal of what your comments about it, Bill, one of the conditions would be that it be, if I understood it right, would it be monitored, that it be monitored by the person that's in charge of the wetlands review. Is that correct?
That's correct. And Mitch Travis was out there. He spoke with Jacob today, I believe. And according to Mitch, that there could be enough space for a smaller yard that meets both the property line constraint, which is 100 feet. And the other factor there is that there are allowances for wetland project processes, which do allow you to sacrifice some wetland resources based on your location. And in this case, I believe that that Mr. Langang would have some options there. So the wetland is the paradigm. It isn't necessarily the pragmatic result on the ground.
Okay. I guess my last question would be for you, Jacob. How did you arrive? I don't know anything about mushing. I have 3 dogs. We've had dogs in our life for a long time. I kind of have a mini experience with the issues of barking, waste, space, etc. How did you arrive at 45, and tell me about, for you, the economics of 20?
Yeah. I arose at 45 because I know that Prejean kennel, that was the one right to my east, was on 5 acres and was granted a 35 dog permit. And I'm on more acreage, so I assumed that more dogs would fit on more acreage. I do hope everybody also understands that the 45 dog number is the number you cannot go over. It doesn't mean you're going to have 45 dogs from day 1 to day whenever. It is just the maximum number that can ever be allowed, which no musher in their right mind would ever be sitting at, because what if something happened and you had more puppies or something, that would put you over the limit. So I think just because I'm saying or asking for 45 doesn't mean that is where I'm going with dogs right off the bat there.
So what would be the impact on you of 20?
What do you mean by that question? The impact on me?
Yeah, you have this range, and you said, well, 45 is the limit, but that seemed in your request that was part of the application. And it's been suggested by Land Services.
Oh, I follow.
That it'd be 20. There's got to be some sense of what that does to your dream and.
Yeah, I follow now. Sorry, I wasn't keeping up right off the bat there. My ideal mushing world is that I would love to have right about 25 dogs there. I know that is subject to ebb and flow, obviously, by a handful of dogs at all times, because you never know when older dogs are going to get adopted to homes, and you never know when, you do know when puppies are going to come, but what if I'm at, a number and the neighbor's dog wanders over and breeds one of your dogs? What do you do at that point if you're right up against the threshold, So that's why I would ideally, I foresee myself having around 25 dogs, but it's nice to have that buffer above you just in case something happens.
So if we were to follow the Land Services suggestion of 20, more realistically, because of the puppy births, you would have somewhere in the neighborhood of 15 or 16?
Due to 15 to 16 dogs older than puppies, are you talking?
Well, if you have a conditional use permit for 20 and puppies are born, what you're saying is that all of a sudden you're in a fix because you've got 8 more puppies.
Exactly, and that's why I think it's imperative to have that number a little bit higher.
What I'm asking though is, if it's set at 20, it's 20, which would mean that you could only really realistically, to accommodate extra births, have maybe 15 or 16 dogs. Because if one of them gave birth to 8 puppies, you're automatically over the limit set by the conditional use permit.
Correct. Yeah, that sounds accurate.
I guess he's asking, can you function in that manner?
Oh, sorry.
Sorry.
Not ideally.
What is suggested today to us, been suggested to the board tonight, and we have the ability to modify the conditions. But the conditions would be that this be an interim use permit, which does have a sunset on it, although it can be extended and it could be for numbers of years rather than just a couple of years. But it's being suggested that this be for 2 years and limited to 20 dogs for that 2 years, as, I don't know what, you can call it what you like, a test case or see how it goes. But then after that, you would need to apply to go higher than 20. That's what's been suggested to us. And Commissioner Anderson, I guess, was questioning, is that going to work if in fact this board went in that direction? I don't have any indication that it will.
I mean, if that is like, I mean, it would have to if that's what everybody has decided, but it is far less than ideal.
Okay, can I jump in? This is
Yes,
Commissioner.
please,
LeBeau.
Charlie. Please, Charlie, go ahead.
So I can give you a little bit of concept on really where we're going here. Whether you're going to do a small touring operation or a smaller racing operation, typically the racing we're doing, you're going to try to field, whether it's Iditarod or is 16 dogs, Bear Grease is 14 dogs. An open North American sprint team is 14 to 18. So to field that type of team, we're ebbing and flowing in that depending on what he's doing, or a small touring operation where he would do, 3 6-dog teams, a couple 8-dog teams. Realistically, you're going to have some puppies, you're going to have some old dogs. I would suggest that really 20 is too tight, even if the intention is to make that work. That little bit of cushion up to 25, or I would suggest 30. I guess I agree that, or I can see the concerns of the neighborhood and all that, and I think 45 is probably a big ask until it's proven that how this kennel is being managed. But I think with the intent of ebbing and flowing right around 20 to 24, and having that little bit of cushion so that we don't come out of compliance at 30, would be a reasonable number based on my experience in the sport, knowing what someone might do racing or in small touring and small kennels. And in reality, we're talking any of these numbers, we are talking a small kennel. So the management is reasonable to all the concerns of the neighborhood in that kind of number. My suggestion is, given the conversation, that the kennel's would run in that 20 to 24 range, but giving it an allowance up to 30 to make sure someone's not coming out of compliance would be a suggestion of mine. The other concern I have, I guess it's less to do with being interim versus conditional use, but being interim with such a short sunset really doesn't work in terms of live animals. It really, if somehow this got pulled in 2 years, you've got a number of live animals you have to deal with, and how that is managed is possibly a really big concern of, where do you move? We're really limited where we can go within the state, within the country. And that's part of the idea of having some protections for it in the guide plan. And this neighborhood is historically having this sport here. I certainly can understand, and being a kennel owner myself, I understand the concerns of noise. I'm empathetic to that. The concerns of the water quality, for sure, I'm on board with. So I guess I'm suggesting a compromise there is reasonable, and I'm just saying 30 is probably a better compromise. And I would say interim use is probably appropriate, but I would avoid a sunset. I would say that it be the life of Jacob's use, but if he sells the property, that it wouldn't be able to move on. That's my suggestion at this point.
Thank you, Charlie. Other commissioners?
This is Judy. Am I understanding? I thought I heard that this was talking about dogs over 6 months and that puppies were not included in the numbers. I just want a clarification of whether it includes the puppies or if it is strictly dogs over 6 months.
Judy, can I speak to that? It is
Sure.
strictly dogs over 6 months, but the reason we're talking about puppies is those puppies grow older than 6 months pretty fast, and it's not a viable time to if you're sorting a team, it's not a viable time to sell or give away those puppies at 6 months. So they're inevitably going to get to a year and a half before you can make that sorting decision. So
you're not,
but by ordinance, it's 6 months that we're talking about. Anything over 6 months.
right. So I'm thinking of, typically if a golden retriever has a batch of puppies, they're gone in 6 weeks. But this isn't the case with sled dogs.
No, that's not the case with sled dogs. As a typical situation, no. We're not weaning them till 8 weeks at a typical, and no, we're not sorting them till 12 to 18 months.
Okay. So we are counting puppies.
Yeah, sounds like it.
Yeah, they will inevitably end up in that number. So that's why, to field a team of 14, you're going to have some that are retired dogs that are staying in the kennel, and you're going to have some that are still puppies, but they're over that 6 month time frame.
All right.
It would be pretty hard to stay within, Charlie, it would be pretty hard to stay within that 20, 25 limit, which is why you're suggesting 30.
Yeah, I think with the goal of staying within the 20 to 25, and one way a creative way to maybe address that is that there could be if the number was really a sticking point, and we said, the number's 25, but we can allow within this, if there's an issue of puppies, that we could allow a 12-month balloon to 30, as a kind of, I don't know the right word, but and that's a regulatory issue. If anyone's looking at, I think it's more difficult to look at that. But in the case of we had an accidental litter, we don't want to just say that this is now he's non-compliant because that breeding took place and he needs time to get rid of those puppies to give them away or to be able to have them of an age that he could sell them. Typically, that's the youngest you would sell a dog in this sport would be in that, maybe a year, but typically the 18-month range. So
My last question, which maybe Bill can answer, were we to do this or some part of, a compromise, who would in fact be in charge of monitoring to make sure that those limits were observed?
Commissioner Anderson, that would be land services. That would be our function, which is our regulatory role to enforce, to educate, that sort of thing. So that would fall on that. And over the last couple of years, we have conducted a number of reviews for interim use permits, typically annually at the end of the year. So it isn't a new concept or process for us, and it's certainly not burdensome within our regulatory role.
I was just concerned about, some monitoring to, assure some of the concerns of the neighbors that we've heard that this isn't going to gradually expand. And then we got this 12-month window and we've got more dogs and, who would really kind of keep an eye on that? And that you've answered my question, I guess.
Other commissioners?
Mr.
Could
Chair,
I just add one more thing? I wouldn't suggest doing the 12-month window. I think that just would get to be that's not the best answer. I mean, the allowance to 30 is really a practical, more practical solution with the intent that, if you're responsible to your permit and you're not going to want to go over the 30, you're going to keep it managed at a 24, 25 cap anyhow. So.
Mr.
Other
Chair,
commissioners? Go ahead, John.
No,
Bill.
yeah, Mr. Chair, and just in response, the conditions are really the guidance for this use.
Mm-hmm.
You know, there's a lot, all we're talking about an increase in dogs and relaxing other things. The big concern comes from our process. If we do get complaints, then our interaction is effectively limited to the conditions that the commission approves and the board of commissioners approves. So we want to be a little more rigid in this because it does give us the constraints that are at least accommodating to the entire residential landscape and not just favorable to Mr. Langang or whoever else is applying for the permit. So the conditions are there, and certainly that's what we're limited to when it comes to an issue.
I have one more question.
Go ahead, Judy.
Will the owner be on site and as a residence, or will he be off site?
I've been living there full time since October and plan on continuing to do so.
Okay.
Thank you.
This is John, and I'll weigh in for a minute if I can have the
Please,
floor.
please.
Don. Yeah, I understand the numbers. I think 40 or 45 is way too many. We're looking at 7.5 acre parcel, and I think that's just pushing a little far. And I understand you're going to have a kennel. You need to have at least 30, the ability to have 30. But I think that even 15 or 20 is probably too many. And I have concerns about the waste issues. But more than anything is the concerns of the neighborhood weighing in that there's going to be noise. I mean, with that many dogs, there's just going to be a lot of noise. And I realize this is FAR land, but I just don't think there's quite enough of it because I think that those neighbors have a right to their peaceful existence. And those dogs are going to bark. I know he wrote in his narrative that they're quiet dogs, but dogs bark. I'm not seeing a good.
Thank you, John. I will just add, I don't know that I want to weigh on either side of this, except to say that I was also on that as we rewrote the comp plan. And this was long and lengthily talked about as this is the dog mushing country. This is where the mushers go. I don't remember I can't tell you the phrasing that's in the plan, but that was that certainly was the direction that we went in that plan. If there's an area of the county where dog mushers go, this is the area. Now we're talking about a specific parcel in the area. I understand that. Any other thoughts or comments, or I'm open to motions.
I would like to comment that throughout Cook County, any 5 acre parcel could become a dog yard.
Hmm.
So that, and if the committee decided 5 acres was enough property, I know how I would feel about it being next to my home. And I've lived next to one barking dog, and it's unpleasant. And I'm not clear whether the proper distance can be gotten with this lot and the wetlands and whatnot.
Well, with the conditions that, as they're written, I think they have to be. It says 100 feet is one of the conditions, 100 feet from the line, and that you have to meet the wetland regulations. So I think, my way of viewing that is that that's staff's job at that point. If this is passed in that manner, I don't know if he can cite those dogs on there or not. That's for staff to determine. But Bill had indicated in his narrative that he thought the issues for wetlands could be overcome with a smaller kennel. Am I correct in paraphrasing you, Bill?
Yeah, the conditions, the narrative exhibit compromise from.
Right. Yeah. So, what direction would you folks like to take?
The closest I could come to approval would be an interim use permit, probably 2 years. See how it's going. And at that opportunity, if the neighbors are hearing and not able to enjoy their property quietly and quiet enjoyment, the permit goes away.
How do you manage those, say 20 to 30 dogs in 2 years when you take the permit away?
Well, they should be aware that they're on notice that this is not a given, and make sure it works. That's what I view this interim permit doing. If they're just going to ignore the neighborhood, I wouldn't approve it. You know, and if and that's why I'm aware of what out in my neighborhood where dogs were staked out in the middle of a field and fed once a day or so. And that didn't last long. So it's just being responsible to your neighbors. And that interim permit would do that.
I think that is, in fact, what you just stated, Judy, is pretty much what the conditions as written say now, I believe. It's 2 years. You have to meet the state noise requirements, you have to meet the wetland requirements, and you have to meet the setback requirements. If I read those conditions properly, those are all in there. It is a small piece of property. I agree, it's 7 whatever it is acres, but I think if I understand, we've had them on other sizes like this. And I really don't like us to get into that conversation because we should be talking about every parcel as independent of another. If one 40 acres away is the right size, it may be 1 10 acres over here may be the right size as well. So we can't just go back and look at other properties and say, oh yeah, the neighbor did it on 5 and I did it on 8. Is it the appropriate size to be able to handle the permits, what the applicant's requesting in the permit, or what we're discussing approving in the permit. And obviously, we are kind of feel like we've fallen far away from the request for a CUP for 45 dogs. It appears we're talking about an IUP for 20 some odd dogs.
Well, the conditional use permit for 45 dogs is easy for me.
Yeah, well, yeah, and I'm looking at the conditions that staff wrote, and they would be an IUP with a limit of 20 for 2 years. Somebody would like to make a motion about that, we can modify that, we can deny it, we can approve it. We need to do something with it.
I would suggest to raise the 20 to 30. And I guess after 2 years, if he's got to move, he's got to move. But I have a lot of concern over the 2 year limit. I absolutely understand and agree with going with interim, but the 2 year limit I have concerns over.
Well, 2 years of bad neighboring is a long time.
Yeah.
Bad
I agree,
neighboring
Judy.
can go both ways and be interpreted by many people. And when you are
Well,
going to start raising 20 dogs, you're responsible for the lives of those animals. And I have concerns about how that interpretation will be taken in 2 years.
I'm with Judy. I could go with 20 with some short expansion, but I think the committee's trying to set a tone, Jacob, that we're trying to compromise to get you off the ground, but for you to operate a full kennel, as Charlie Laborda is suggesting, is not realistic on this property. But we'd be willing to give you the 2 years to kind of take a look at that. And if you wanted to be larger, if you wanted to get into larger dog teams, then you would start to have to look for an alternative property. But I would go with the interim permit for a smaller number of dogs to see if can compromise to get you off the ground, but anything larger than that.
And I would go with getting the interim permit and getting the neighbors on board and then if, with blessings, I can see expansion if it's feasible. But this is a way to try it out and see if it's going to work. And everybody, is aware that it's how, if it works well, all the better.
Somebody want to put some of that discussion into a motion?
Adopt language of 20 with oversight and review as an interim conditional use permit.
Let me read you let me read you right now the conditions as written by staff on this. It's a CUP request, but it's written to be an IUP. We would grant an IUP. Yeah, and I'm on the wrong page here, going through these things here. I flipped to the sign guy already. Sorry.
I would has a motion been made?
No, it has not.
I think Mr. Anderson was doing it.
He was starting to, and then we started to rewrite we need to get those conditions, and I'm just scrolling back to find them here in front of us so that we're not duplicating or cutting something out of them. Let me see here.
Right.
As I scroll.
Mr. Chair,
Yes, sir.
is it too late to ask Jacob a question?
No, go right ahead.
Jacob, this is John, and I'm curious, have you raised dogs before and had experience in this field?
Yeah, I've been
And
managing
if so,
dog
have you
kennels.
had any problems?
Oh, wait, sorry, were you adding more there?
Go ahead.
I've been managing kennels every winter except for one since 2013.
All right. I finally found our conditions.
Did you have another question there, John? You're kind of cutting out on me.
Have you had any complaints or problems in any of those with the neighbors in the past?
Negative. No, I haven't had anything. Yeah, there's zero complaints I've ever had.
Okay, thank you.
All right, what I was talking about before, Chuck, I'm sorry if I cut you off, but we get to the various conditions that we have attached to this permit at this point. If we're using these to begin with, it's all land use parameters established by the Cook County Kennel Ordinance, including setbacks, distances, buffers, well protection, noise, and environmental considerations, will be incorporated in the kennel operations. Number 2, prior to establishing the kennel yard, the applicant must conform to all Wetland Conservation Act criteria as established by Traverse County's wetland and land use specialist. No component of the yard may be closer than 100 feet from adjacent private property lines. Both north-south property lines shall be clearly demarcated with flagging prior to preparation of the access, kennel, and composting areas. A berm or other acceptable impermeable barrier intended to impede surface flow shall be established downslope from the kennel area. This IUP, note it's an IUP, shall be reviewed by Land Services and the Planning Commission at the end of 2021 and 2022. For the first 2 years of operation, the maximum number of dogs will be no greater than 20. This IUP shall expire at the end of 2022. Therefore, Mr. Langang may apply for a new IUP or CUP and may request an expansion of the number of dogs not to exceed 45. So that's our starting point. Okay. I think that incorporated pretty much of the things, everything I think you asked, Judy, I think is in there. And Chuck, did you want to do something with that?
I was just trying to respond to Charlie Laborda's notion about the puppies. I guess my suggestion would kind of tie into what the Mellons were talking about, and that is the notion that if for some reason, Jacob, you had to go over a brief period of time that might be accommodated, but if it was anything more than that, you would have to place those dogs off-site and maybe work with one of the other kennels to keep yourself at 20.
Can I comment on that?
No,
Yes, go ahead, Jacob.
Okay. I guess my thoughts on that are there are the wetlands restrictions in place. Like they're very clearly stated. Mitch Travis was out of my property yesterday. He called me at like 2 o'clock today, told me he was out there putting flagging out there for where's a go versus where's a no-go zone. So it seems like the reason people don't want to commit to more dogs is because they're afraid of the encroachment on wetlands. But I'm not allowed to do that with or without a certain number. Even if I have a 5-dog kennel permit, I still can't encroach on the wetlands.
I wasn't suggesting that. I was suggesting that on that parcel, as Commissioner Machenbacher has suggested, that it's in a neighborhood setting. It might have been different years and years ago, but it's not now. And so we have to be attentive to the neighbors who have pre-existed you on their property. So I was trying to reach some kind of a compromise to help you get started that we could review, see how it's going. And if it really isn't working for you, then you would have time to start to perhaps look for an alternative site.
And I guess my only addition to that is the land use guide plan is not that old. And in there, it explicitly states that Frank's Way is a home for dog mushers. That is where the county wants dog mushers to be because there's such an extensive trail network right outside your door. They want everybody grouped up together. And that is, my property's on Frank's Way. So I couldn't be more in that.
Okay. Didn't disagree with you there. I was on that committee. Okay.
So
Go ahead, Judy.
is there a motion made?
No, there's not a motion yet.
I guess I would like to just add one more thing. I mean, I think sort of Jacob's point about the numbers, and I would say really what we're boiling down to is noise concerns. And in the conditions, meeting 70-30 is a requirement. And so I guess I'm at any number, if he can meet 70-30, I don't see why we're going to restrict that. And 70-30 was set by the PCA in consideration with neighborhoods. So just like to add that comment.
Okay, thank you, Charlie.
I would make a motion that we offer an interim use permit with the capacity of 25 dogs on a 2-year basis with the restrictions and the recommendations from the staff.
So you are making a motion to grant this IUP as with the conditions as stated, except increasing the maximum number to 25. Is that correct, Judy?
That's correct.
Item 7 states the maximum number of dogs will be no greater than 20. We're changing that to 25, and the rest of the conditions shall stay the same.
Yes.
Okay, we have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
I have a second by Commissioner Anderson. Further discussion? Okay, hearing none, I will call the roll. Commissioner Machenbacher.
Aye.
And I'll be aye myself. Charlie Laboda.
I guess I.
Okay, thank you. John?
Hey,
Nay. And Chuck Anderson. Is that an aye, Chuck?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, this passes by a vote of 4-1. Jacob, this is, you're at an advisory committee here. This is going to go to the county board, and staff will tell you when that's going to be in a couple of weeks. It'll be on the county board agenda, and you can discuss it further there. But this is the recommendation that they will receive from this committee. Thank you for coming tonight.
Appreciate y'all's time. Thank you.
All right.
Thank you all for your testimony. Or suggestions.
Okay, we are moving on to our next item is David Smith. Request for a conditional use permit to install an internally illuminated sign on property adjacent to Highway 61 in Grand Marais. Legal description is lots 1 through 7 inclusive and lot 26 through 32 inclusive, block 12 Bayview Edition in the village of Grand Marais. PID is 53-160-1226. Mr. Lane.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I see Mr. Smith is in attendance this evening. This is case 2021-2 CUP. He purchased his property, his 1.25 acre parcel in 2010. Property is entirely contained within the Cook County General Commercial Zone District. Conditional uses are identified in Section 10, Article 10 of the Cook County Zoning Ordinance. And also for signs and that sort of thing, we have a specific sign ordinance, which is Cook County Sign Ordinance number 53, which was recently amended in 2016. I'll read the intent of the sign ordinance. The primary intent of this ordinance shall be to regulate signs of a commercial nature that are intended to be viewed from any vehicular or pedestrian right-of-way. Because of Cook County's unique environmental settings and awareness and its reliance on tourism, it is further the intent of this ordinance to encourage quality and aesthetics in the size, design, and materials used for the construction of signs, and to enhance the overall appearance and image of the area, and to assure that the public is not endangered by the unsafe or disorderly use of signage. This includes the intent to promote public health, safety, and welfare by limiting hazardous or distracting signage and by allowing clear informational and directional signage in the right-of-way. Further objectives of these regulations are to ensure compatibility of signs with surrounding land uses, to protect property values in all districts, and to protect the public investment in streets and highways, to promote the safety and recreational value of public travel, to strengthen the economy, and to improve the appearance of the county. It is also the intent of the Office of Planning and Zoning, we need another amendment because it's now Land Services, personnel to assist individuals to further clarification of the provisions of this ordinance should they have questions. We have a couple of different signs that are in part of the application tonight. One is an illuminated sign, and the other is an internally illuminated sign. And if you were able to look at the sign ordinance, internally illuminated signs do require a conditional use permit. The other information that is relevant is all identified in the sign, back on kennels, in the sign ordinance, and also reference is given in the land use guide plan, which is truly our aesthetic guiding document for the county. I'll move right into considerations. The Cook County Sign Ordinance provides wide-ranging guidance for the display of information or business advertisement in a variety of landscapes throughout the county. The purpose of the ordinance may be described as boilerplate, relevant to any county in Minnesota, while the intent has more specific connotations to Cook County directly. And another paraphrase here is to protect and promote the health, safety, and general welfare of the unincorporated areas of Cook County, Minnesota, through the establishment of minimum requirements for the regulation of the type, placement, use, display, scale, and maintenance of signs. It is not the purpose or intent of this ordinance to regulate the message displayed on any sign. Over the past decade in Cook County, the number of advertisement displays along Highway 61 has decreased. In part, this is the result of adherence to the National Scenic Byways program, with the North Shore Scenic Byway being northeastern Minnesota's flagship travel corridor of that program. Excuse me. The last conditional use permits issued by the county were in 2016 for existing business sign upgrades from fluorescent to internal LED illumination. The illumination upgraded resulted in several notable changes to this displays. First, being they are more colorful, and second, they are significantly brighter. Conflict with illuminated advertisement displays comes in three forms. First would be conflicts with the Cook County sign ordinance itself. Second, MnDOT will intervene if a display disrupts safe travel, even if the illumination is off their right-of-way. That's a direct communication with Wayne Scherer, who's the MnDOT right-of-way director or engineer. Finally, it is the recent acknowledgement of impacts to the county's nighttime aesthetics, driven most notably by the dark sky movement. Combined, the sign ordinance must accommodate all things pertaining to business, safety, and Cook County's tourist-driven economy. The applicant has proposed construction of a 32 square foot internally illuminated nighttime aesthetic sign display with a maximum elevation of 14 feet. Must accommodate all things pertaining to business, safety, and Cook County's tourist-driven economy.
Okay, we got a little feedback going again here.
Feedback. Construction of a 32 square foot.
Maybe if folks are going to put,
People need to put their mute
go to
on.
mute. Yeah, if everyone will mute, we'll get rid of that.
I'll continue. Just mute if you get the chance. And let me just step back so we don't have inconsistent narrative here. The location of the display is immediately adjacent to his Mr. Anderson's, or excuse me, Mr. Smith's statewide insurance business at the western entrance to Grand Marais. The nearest internally illuminated sign is approximately 1/4 mile to the east, which is Benny's Collision Center, but is under the city of Grand Marais jurisdiction. During discussions with the applicant, Land Services encouraged a sign display which was free of the CUP process, namely an externally illuminated on-premise sign. The CUP application suggests his response to the communicated display alternative. While color and brilliance represent technological advances in internally illuminated displays, they are also less energy dependent and most notably are dimmable. They are also poorly defined in the sign ordinance. In 2014, the gap in LED coverage in the Cook County sign ordinance resulted in a proposed moratorium to prohibit LED displays, thereby giving then planning and zoning time to catch up on ordinance updates. Although supported and approved by the Planning Commission, the request was subsequently denied by the Board of Commissioners, and ordinance modifications resulting from those actions are what currently serve as our permitting template. In the case of the Smith request and its relevance to LED guidance, we are obligated to follow what legal guidance there is and precedent, even though those criteria are highly subjective and prone to variability. During 3 preceding LED cases, the county's approach has been to either turn off the display during non-business hours. Lockport and Lutsen is a great example of that. That's 2016-1 CUP. Or to dim the display during non-business hours. Clearview had the same process, 2014-1 CUP, and the Tofty Holiday 2016-5 CUP. Excuse me. Minimally, the county's ability to evaluate LED displays is imprecise, and so we apply what we believe are sensical conditions that trend towards regulatory caution. If approved, the following conditions may be applied to the CUP request. 1, all components of the sign construction and display shall adhere to criteria identified in the Cook County sign ordinance. 2, illumination shall not interfere with the orderly passage of traffic on Highway 61 or other travel arteries. 3, a Cook County sign permit shall be necessary. 4, a top of the sign overhang to prevent skyward diffusion of light shall be necessary. 5, the sign shall either be turned off after business hours or dimmed to no more than 10% of the display brilliance after sunset. 6, land services shall monitor the display for CUP and sign ordinance compliance. And 7, a land services and planning commission review of the permit shall occur at the end of 2021. We sent out 47 letters of notification. At the time of this narrative preparation, we received 1 comment in favor of the request from Harriet Quarles. Mr. Chair, you're muted. Everybody's muted.
Yes, now you can hear me. Did we receive comments from MnDOT on the sign?
I spoke with Wayne Scher, and he indicated that he didn't have any issues because the sign would be off the MnDOT right away. That's their biggest concern.
Yeah, right.
To not broach their right of way, but again, the safety concerns are what they would have no problem intervening on. So that's
very good. Okay, Mr. Smith, do you have anything you would like to add to Bill's narrative before we open this hearing up to the public for comment?
Oh, I'll just listen in, seeing in line.
Very good, thank you. Okay, then at this point, I will open this this public hearing to the public from the request. It's a conditional use permit to install an internally illuminated sign along the Highway 61 at the right in the county, but at the edge of Grand Marais. Anyone that wants to comment on that, now is your opportunity. Anyone to comment on the Smith request for a CUP? Okay, hearing none, we're going to close the public hearing and I'll turn to commissioners for any questions or comments you might have. I'll tell you, I did go out and of course, how can you can't go to town without looking at this one along the way.
I have a question.
Go ahead, Chuck.
When Bill, when you say that it's going to be monitored at night to 10%, do we have any estimate of how bright that sign will be during the day? In terms of like brilliance?
Yeah, I don't know. You know, the like I said in the narrative, that we have no repeatable way of measuring that.
Yeah.
You know, there are luminescence displays or meters and things like that. And this discussion occurred back in 2014 and 15. And the term subjectivity is really relevant here. You know, the big concern isn't necessarily diurnal hours, it's after dark when we really get into that aesthetic conflict. So again, this is just trying to find a path for this request to go forward. We recognize the importance of business advertisement, but we want it to fit within the constraint of the landscape.
Mr. Smith, has your sign contractor given you any information about the lumens that will be present during the day?
None that I can recall off the top of my head, to be honest with you. I've been doing this for 2 years and I just don't have recall about those kind of details.
Okay.
Yeah.
I just wondered. I've seen some signs along, various highways that are very bright during the day, and it's very attention grabbing. Your sign seems pretty modest and pretty appropriate to me if it's kept in a more business-like, I guess a more business-like lumens, as opposed to buy now, stop here.
Oh, I appreciate that.
Let me ask you a question in that regard. Then this when we say back there, an internally lit sign, it's just a constant internal lighting, has no pulsing, flashing, that sort of thing.
That's correct.
That's correct. All right.
Yeah, that was a question I had. That's not a digital.
No. Yeah.
This is not a digital sign.
Right.
No.
Yeah. Very good.
Thanks.
Other questions? comments, motions?
I'll motion to approve as requested.
Okay, we have a motion by Commissioner Anderson to approve the Smith request.
I'll second.
Wait,
And we
with
have
the
a second by
stipulations.
Charlie. Yes, we have the second here by Charlie, and I assume, Mr. Anderson and Charlie, you both, you're doing it with the stipulations as written in the request here.
Correct for my part.
Yes, and Chuck, you can't nod at me. You've got to say yes out loud. Thank you. Okay, so we have a motion and a second to approve this request as written with the conditions as attached. Other comments or questions? Okay, hearing none, I'm going to call the roll. Let's see, Commissioner Maschenbacher.
Aye.
I'll be aye myself. Commissioner Laboda. Charlie, you there? You're muted, Charlie.
Muted.
Aye.
Okay, and Commissioner Anderson, or Commissioner Schlote.
Aye.
I'm jumping ahead here. I already marked you off. All right, and Chuck Anderson. Chuck's aye.
Aye.
Aye, very good, thank you. That we have passed this, and again, this goes to the county board, Mr. Smith, for their final approval. We're recommending as written that this should be adopted, so. Thank you. We will, I would take a motion to adjourn the planning commission.
I'll move.
Okay, we have a motion by Judy to adjourn. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by
I'll second.
Commissioner Anderson. Chuck already got the second, but now I'm going to call the roll. Judy Maschenbacher.
Aye.
I am I myself. Charlie
Aye.
and John. John, yeah, I didn't hear you, John.
Aye.
And Chuck.
Aye.
Yeah. I saw your lips move, Chuck. You guys, the voice isn't coming through too good. Okay, we are done with our with our planning commission meeting, and we're going to now move into our board of adjustment for this evening.
Thank you, commissioners.
Thank you.
Yep.
Okay, board of adjustment for I want to read the wrong date here, for May 12th. Our first order of business is to approve our agenda and to adopt or approve the minutes of our April 14th meeting. Someone like to make a motion to that effect?
I make a motion.
Okay, we have a motion by Commissioner Maschenbacher. Anybody left here? Did everybody leave me? What's going on? Me and Judy, and who's here?
I'll second.
Oh, Charlie's there. Okay. Now we got three of us yet. All right. Charlie's second. All right. And I think that's all of us here then, isn't it? Just the three of us that are voting at this point. Is that right? Yeah, we lost two members from the planning commission. So we do have a quorum. There are three of us. So we have I'll call the roll for those then. That was Judy.
Aye.
And it's I, myself, and Charlie.
Aye.
Aye, okay. Our first item then beyond that is to, well, we have some ongoing business. Let me back up a second. Item A under ongoing business, Robert Torkeldsen. Bill, you going to update us on that?
Yes, Mr. Chair. This is a after the fact variance request submitted by Mr. Torkeldsen and originally heard at the April 14th Board of Adjustment meeting. The issues that were present remain. Basically, Mr. Torkeldsen built a garage port and wood storage structure after being informed by Land Services that he needed a variance. Basically built it anyways outside of our control, and we initiated an after the fact variance process on that. The issue from a Land Services regulatory perspective is that if we're giving direct instructions or advice, and that instruction or advice is is ignored, then it really effectively removes our ability to enforce an ordinance, and at that point calls into question the validity of the ordinance itself. So we were fairly adamant about bringing this forward as an after the fact. That's the allowance within the constraints of the state and the county. And Mr. Torkelson wasn't able to attend that meeting, but I did talk to him the next day, April 15th, and informed him of the board's decision to table the motion, and subsequently it was forwarded as old business. And we are here tonight on May 12th.
Okay. And Mr. Torkelson is here?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. I guess where we tabled this last month. I mean, I'll speak frankly, I think we tabled it rather than reject it. Because you weren't here to represent yourself, and there were a lot of questions that were unanswered.
Well, I thank all of you. I thank all of you for allowing me this time.
Very good. What would you like to tell us?
Well, if I could just, first of all, thank you. And I want to say that I have made several mistakes, admittedly, not with intent. There was no intent to go around any regulations or anything. And I'd just like to explain, I think, the chain of events where there was miscommunication that took place. So I built a timber frame at North House Folk School, and I wanted to erect it behind my cottage to make a library for Hovland. So I talked to Bill and Mitch, and they thought on this little lot that wouldn't be possible. So I said, okay, I'm not going to do it. I'll build it at a later date on another property I have. So that was done. That's one project. I realized it would not get, permitted. So I said, okay, I'm going to back off that. But that's done deal. Then my wife asked me to make a little cover for her car because we have a lot of sap falling on a car and a little wood storage, a stick frame. And I got together with a buddy carpenter, and we thought 10 by 12 doesn't need a permit. Stupid me. I didn't realize the road setback. That's my fault. I admit it. I'm just back to Cook County after being gone for 13 years. I was living overseas, and so I went ahead and built this little stick frame. It's not enclosed, carport, but store a little wood, park the car. And apparently that was seen as the previous project. It was nothing to do with the previous project that I was talking about, the timber frame, which would have been an enclosed building. I was going to make a library, and it would have been behind the place. So it's totally two separate things. And I think that's where the confusion is, that I didn't go behind the back I didn't build the timber frame out here. I just built a little stick, carport with a metal roof. So I think it was just a kind of a misunderstanding on that point. And, but I've learned a lot in this process. I know I'm in the wrong. I apologize. It will never happen again. I mean, I learned my lesson. I've been reading all the minutes, and I've been reading the regulations today. Kind of upsetting for me because I worked 30 years in law enforcement and compliance, and I believe in complying. So it's not something I did with intent, and I just hope you'll acknowledge that, and we can move forward. And I thank you for your time.
Elaine.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and Mr. Torkelson, thank you for that. Just for the record, that there was really no equivocation between the two structures. We didn't see that timber frame as any more forgiving than the carport and the woodshed. Either one would have been had the same instructions that you need a variance and in
Right.
one case, a land use permit. So just so that's
Right.
there, so it's part of the process. That's all.
We're here tonight to talk about the woodshed that's built out too far, too close to the road.
Right.
The one behind the house doesn't have anything to do with anything anymore. The only thing that has to do with anything is that staff was there and talked to you about that, and you talked about the need of building permits and those sorts of things. And then the next thing they see, you went and built a building after they had this conversation with you. And it kind of, I hear what you're saying, but what you're saying and what staff was seeing, it kind of looked like two different stories.
I understand it. I get it. I mean, you know, I've been thinking about this a lot. You know, obviously.
Yeah. I bet you have.
I have. It was upsetting to me because I'm a person that goes by the book. And so I made the mistake. I know it. And,
Okay.
you know.
I guess the question before us tonight is and I don't have all that paperwork in front of me again tonight, Bill, but the request here, what we're talking about is an after the fact variance for, I don't remember the exact footage, but for this building to be able to remain too close to the road right away is what it is.
Correct.
And the other option, I mean, we have an option to approve that, or the other option is to remedy it. You can, I don't remember how many feet of it stick into the right of way. I don't recall that stuff. Bill, go ahead.
I don't have room. There's
Bill, go tell him what you have.
Mr. Chair, what I can do is read the original conditions that were attached to
Yeah,
the.
that would be good, Bill, if you would do that, please.
And that was, number one was an after the fact land use permit with land use fee, and after the fact fees shall be assessed to the property owner. 2, if removal is ordered, structure shall be removed no later than May 15th, 2021. Obviously, that isn't viable now. And 3, the property shall conform to Minnesota Rule 7080 in the Cook County septic ordinance. So it wasn't an involved conditional.
Very good. Mhm.
It was a constraint nevertheless.
I
Well,
will
that's-
make a motion
okay.
that the variance be granted.
Thank
We
you.
have a
conditions.
we have a motion from Commissioner Matschenbacher with the conditions as attached that it be granted. Charlie, you want to weigh in on that? And you're muted, Charlie.
I guess I'm still kind of not sure how I feel on this one, so.
Yeah.
I'd like to hear how you feel, Don.
I'm a little torn, because and I'm not pointing fingers at you, sir. I'll just tell you that I have concerns that we see after the fact permit requests come to us, because I know up here people say, oh my gosh, $500. If you moved up here from the Twin Cities, $500 in a permit is like, that's the sales tax. I'm sorry. So people go ahead and build what they want. And then they come back and when they know they shouldn't, and they say, well, you're not going to make me tear it down, are you? I'll pay you the extra 500.
That's not the case.
I didn't say it is with you, sir. I am just suggesting that we do have some of that going on in this area. And for that reason, I do struggle a little bit anytime these come along. So that's where I am, Charlie. I'm probably with you. I'm kind of sitting on the fence here. If it was a matter of being able to move this thing back 5 feet, or I don't remember the distances even, how close, how much too close is it, Bill?
Just a sec. I think I have a site depiction. I do want to comment as well, and this, while I'm looking for the site map, the fact that we had conversations, the fact that we have an ordinance, the fact that that ordinance is uniformly applied to all people in Cook County, and the fact that we have had communications that say what the process is, to forgive those really, really undermines our function. And, I understand it's an inconvenience and everything, but if we get blatant disregard for our instructions, then it really, we get to the ethical point of what is the point of enforcing ordinances. And that's my biggest concern. And I'll tell you that on the cusp of, after the fact, and we have more after the facts coming, where the same process has occurred. And we just want to make sure that that's part of the awareness and familiarity. I've been doing this for 15 years. And the worst case always is an after the fact where there was knowledge that it was an after the fact. And, and as communicative as we can be, if we lose that connection with the ordinance, then we really are losing our constraint as a law-abiding county. That's my concern. Sorry, I'm on my soapbox, but this is really evidentiary to me as far as where we are slipping towards a really slippery slope of county regulations and rules and the avoidance of the same.
I think I remember it being said that if the variants were requested prior to building, it probably would have been approved.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I recall that as well, Judy.
So if anyone's around who hasn't made a mistake, let me know. We screw up. And I think we've heard that it was a mistake and there's remorse, and that's where my motion is. If someone wants to change it, I'll withdraw.
And where we stand at this point is we do have a motion on the table from Judy that has not been seconded.
I guess I would just weigh in. I mean, I really, really hate the idea of making him remove that building, and yet I understand the idea of making mistakes, but I also go to knowing that he had communicated with Land Services and was aware of the ordinance restraint and how difficult his lot was. I guess I really, as I said, I hate the idea of doing this, but I think this really was caused, mistake or not, was caused by the landowner. And I really think that based on my knowledge of what the ordinance is and what I really think we probably got to ask him to remove it or tell him it has to be removed. I'm still kind of torn on that because I mean, you guys know me, I'm pretty much always for landowner rights. But in this case, this seems, yeah, that's where I would go with it. And so,
well, let me say we have a motion on the table and I haven't heard a second. If there's the motion's going to die for lack of a second in just a moment, because we have three of us here, and Charlie, you haven't brought a second forward, and I don't think I'm going to either. So I think this motion is going to fail on that for that purpose. You want to make it? What would you say about that, Charlie?
I guess where I'm at is, and I apologize, I don't have the paperwork in front of me, so
I don't either.
But I would motion for removal. I really don't like doing it, but I think in this case, we have to stand up for the ordinance and the people why that's in place. So I'm making a motion for removal.
Okay, we have a motion by Commissioner Laboda to have the structure removed. I would guess, and staff can work out the details of what that would be, what removal means. It has to be removed from the encroachment. At least the portion of it that encroaches would have to be removed. And then you'd have to do. I understand. You have all kinds of problems.
That's my intent there.
Yeah, right. It's that it needs to be moved outside of the setback area. And I will second that motion, Charlie. As much as I don't, I'm with you. I am totally torn by that. I don't like doing this at all, And yet I feel we have to in order to just uphold the ordinances here. So
I have
go ahead, Judy.
I have some discussion. So we're,
Sure.
if we ask him to remove it and he removes it, he then can come and ask for a variance. And it probably would be approved.
After the constraint would be 1 year since the removal, if I understand that correct. There is a constraint there. And yes, like my narrative said, had this been a straight up variance request, it wouldn't have been an issue, at least from my familiarity with the Board of Adjustment. This is something that was, he's got a very small parcel, but it's not like those are the setbacks and everything else are new information for his ownership. That's just where it's at. Yeah.
And I guess along the discussion, as I said, I apologize, I don't have the paperwork in front of me, but I do remember reading a number of correspondence in our packet from last month, and the landowner was aware of the ordinance, and the structure was erected.
Could I make a statement?
Very briefly, yes, go ahead.
Okay. The correspondence was in relation to the timber frame that was going in the back of the house. And so when I was in my way of thinking about this other thing was, it was under 10 by 12, so I wouldn't need a building permit. My carpenter said the same thing. I, in my naiveness, did not understand the road setback, which was nothing to do with the other project. So that was in my confusion.
I think we understand that, sir, that
Okay.
you had two different things going on. The point, though, the point is, and Commissioner Laboda is saying, is you had many contacts with staff and they told you had a very difficult lot to build anything on. And then the next time they came along, you built something and you built it where you shouldn't have, and you didn't ask. That's kind of where we sit.
Okay.
Okay. Further discussion? Hearing none. I'll call for the vote. Commissioner Achenbacher.
Nay.
I will vote aye. Commissioner Laboda.
Aye.
And we have 2-1. The ayes have it. I'm sorry, sir, but yes, sir, Bill.
The conditions that were established included a timestamp for removal. Did you want to
Yes.
address those?
Unless someone has an objection to this, I would suggest that staff work with the owner to see that it happens this construction season. Does that make sense? I mean, you have to decide, make it
And I
easy.
would agree with
I don't want to
those.
say make it easy because there is no way to do this easily. I'm sorry, but make it as easy as you can. Does that work, Bill?
Yes.
All right. We're going to move on to our next item is the Coldwater Foundation doing business as Mink Lake Wilderness Camp. Request for a variance from the shoreline setback to construct a camp kitchen on property adjacent to Mink Lake. Legal description is part of the southwest quarter of the northeast quarter, section 8, township 62 north, range 2 east. PID is 54-208-1300. Mr. Lane.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This is case 2021-9B. I see Mr. Sutton is present for this Zoom meeting. The property is leased to the Coldwater Foundation by the U.S. Forest Service and has been since 2015. Property includes 7.57 acres. Mink Lake is a natural environment NEL lake and includes 150-foot structural and 150-foot septic treatment area setbacks. Mink Lake Camp is contained within the Resort Commercial Residential or RCR zone district in a zoning landscape that includes both lakeshore residential and forest agriculture residential. Considerations. In June of 2015, Coldwater Foundation became the operators of the Mink Lake Camp, a 7.5 acres leased recreational facility on the shore of Mink Lake. The camp was originally positioned on Elbow Lake, but was moved to Mink Lake in 1938, where it thereafter became known as the Mink Lake Bible Camp. Then as now, the camp focuses on a wilderness experience with both external and internal challenges for its participants. Although the parcel is under federal ownership, the special use permit agreement between the Forest Service and the Coldwater Foundation includes the following disclaimer. In exercising the privileges granted by this permit, the holder shall comply with all present and future federal laws and regulation and all present and future state, county, and municipal laws, regulations, and other legal requirements that apply to the permit area to the extent that they do not conflict with federal law, regulation, or policy. Forest Service assumes no responsibility for enforcing laws, regulations, and other legal requirements that fall under the jurisdiction of other governmental entities, i.e. the county. The derivative of that is that despite being a federal property, the camp is beholden to county jurisdiction. In 2020, the Coldwater Foundation requested and received approval for a variance request to construct a dining area and pizza oven. There was discussion at the time for a kitchen rebuild, which is delayed until now. The current proposal is for the construction of a 528 square foot kitchen facility within the shoreline setback. Again, that's 150 feet of Mink Lake. Mink Lake is a natural environment lake, and with that designation, as just suggested, comes the 150-foot structural and septic treatment setbacks. Had this request been included in the 2020 process, we assume it would have been approved and a second application and processing fee would not have been necessary. As presented, this does not present a significant threat to the shared water resource and will be connected to the existing lodge, but with a greater setback distance from the lake that is greater than 120 feet. Significant as well is the request is occurring within the constraints of the camp's federal lease agreement. If approved, the following conditions may be attached to this interim use permit. 1, no construction may begin until all necessary permits are approved by Land Services. Sorry, this is a variance. There I go. My editing skills are diminished when I edit myself. Number 2, the property shall conform to Minnesota Rules 7080 in the Cook County Septic Ordinance. 3, construction shall not exceed 528 square feet. Vertical wall dimension, 2-foot overhangs. 4, construction may not occur closer than 120 feet from the Mink Lake ordinary high water elevation based upon those drip line measurements. 5, no vegetation shall be removed from within the shoreline impact zone. We sent out 18 letters and received no comments, including from the Forest Service.
Good. Thank you, Bill. Yes, sir. Mr. Sutton, do you have anything you'd like to add to Bill's narrative before we open this up to public comment?
No, nothing to add. Thanks, Bill, for putting that together. I'll listen.
Very good. Thank you. Okay, then at this point, I'll open this public hearing for anyone that wishes to comment on the Coldwater Foundation's request for a variance on Mink Lake. Anyone wishes to comment on the Coldwater Foundation request for a variance? Now's your opportunity. Coldwater Foundation variance, if you'd like to comment. I don't see anyone online here to be able to comment, so we're going to close the public comment and we'll move right to the commissioners. Judy, Charlie, do you have any questions or comments?
I'll make a motion to approve the variance with recommendations.
Yeah. We have a motion by Judy.
I will second.
And Charlie seconds it. Just for a point of conversation, I will say I did visit with some of your staff. You were not there the other day. They all came running out to meet me when they saw a car come down the road. So, and it looks like you need a new kitchen, and building it right where the old one was. It makes good sense. So I will support this as well. Any further discussion? Okay, hearing none, I'll call the vote. Judy?
Aye.
I myself. Charlie?
Aye.
All right, your request is passed. So you have your variance, sir.
Thank you.
Okay, we will move on to our next item is Thomas and Renee Holt. Pardon me? Yes, Bill.
Can I take just a couple minute break here?
You bet. Okay, let's take just a couple of minutes and then we'll come back. I'll use the opportunity myself.
Thank you.
All right, Bill's back. How about Charlie? Are you there, Charlie?
Yes, I'm here.
Okay, then we're going to start back in with our next item, which is Thomas and Renee Holeen, request for an after-the-fact variances from the shoreline setback to retain a storage structure and accessory structure on an island parcel in Greenwood Lake. Legal description is part of Government Lot 8, Section 21, and Government Lot 5, Section 28, Township 64 North, Range 2 East, PID 54-421-4350. Mr. Lane.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Holeen is in attendance this evening. His case is 2021-10V. The island parcel was purchased in 2004 and includes 7.5 acres at the northwest corner of Greenwood Lake. Parcel is wholly contained in the Lakeshore Residential Zone District, and Greenwood Lake is classified as a recreational development lake. The intent and purpose of the Cook County zoning ordinance is as follows. An ordinance establishing comprehensive zoning regulations for that portion of Cook County, Minnesota, outside the incorporated limit of municipalities in accordance with the provisions of Minnesota statutes, chapter 394 and 105.485, and all acts amendatory thereof, to promote the health, safety, morals, and general welfare of the inhabitants by dividing the county into zones and regulating therein the uses of land and the placement of all structures with a view to encouraging the most appropriate use of the land in the county and to recognize and preserve the economic and natural environmental values of all lands within the county. Ordinary high water level is relevant to this request, and that is a reference to the boundary of public waters and wetlands, which is determined as the margin where aquatic vegetation changes to terrestrial vegetation as caused by the highest water level, which has been maintained for a sufficient length of time to to leave evidence on the landscape. The level of water at this margin is the ordinary high water elevation, OHW. Other terms used in this ordinance, which shall have equal definition, are shoreline normal high water mark, and that is from Article 2.47 of the Cook County zoning ordinance. Setback is the minimum horizontal distance between where a structure may be placed and the normal high water mark, road center line, road right-of-way, front, side, or rear lot line, well, sewage, soil absorption, and or soil treatment area, Article 2.56 of the Cook County zoning ordinance. And the shore impact zone is an area located between the ordinary high water level and a public water parallel at a setback of 50% of the required structural setback. So the moving on to the considerations, we also have criteria from the land use guide plan and the Lake Shore Residential Zone District. And I'll move right on to considerations. The Holines purchased their property in 2004 and thereafter commenced property build out of a 704 square foot cabin as represented by land use permit 2004-135. Subsequent build outs focused on storage and for the most part were below the 160 square foot permitting threshold or were not intended for human habitation, thereby offering relief from the permitting process. 2013 septic inspection identified property noncompliance because of inadequate soil separation for the pit outhouse and for a straight pipe drainage from the cabin. The noncompliance was rectified, and in 2019, a peat filter mound treatment system was installed on the property. During the discovery process for the Holine property, Land Services noted that a garage and accessory structure had been built by the Holines, and in both cases, construction was within the shoreline setback. Further investigation indicated that for both structures, variance relief was not requested, and for the garage, no land use permit had been applied for. That scenario, combined with the property history, set the stage for the current after-the-fact variance process for the Holine property. As evidenced in their application, the dynamics of a compliant property changed in 2014 when their cities-based home sold and a permanent move to the island was initiated. Rather than go through the permitting and variance process, they opted instead to build the 576 square foot garage without regulatory involvement. Land Services spoke with the applicants on May 5th, 2021, and confirmed that while they built without a permit or variance, they also made no attempt to rectify the non-compliant construction thereafter. According to Mr. Holine, the accessory structure was built around the same time, and they considered the main lake body to be the setback threshold. Instead, Land Services identified the channel separating their island from the peninsula as the shoreline threshold, and that's based on Minnesota Rules 6120, 2500, subpart 11, and accordingly identified an after-the-fact variance for the accessory structure. Given the lack of a water-oriented accessory structure allowance in Cook County, Land Services suggested an after-the-fact compromise of moving the structure to 50 feet from the shoreline, which would be in line with proposed future ordinance revisions. Mr. Holine indicated he would instead remove the structure from within the 100-foot setback, which serves as an acceptable resolution for Land Services. The Holines have paid a $500 after-the-fact variance fee for the garage. In addition, they will be assessed a $300 after-the-fact land use permit fee for the garage and a $500 after-the-fact variance fee for the water-oriented accessory structure. Removal of the water-oriented accessory structure will relieve the need for an ATF fee for that structure. Following conditions may be applied to this variance. 1, the storage structure shall be removed no later than July 31st, 2021. 2, should the Holines opt to retain the storage structure, they will be required to submit a new variance request and will be required to pay an after-the-fact variance fee. 3, a land use permit and land use permit after-the-fact fee for the garage shall be submitted no later than May 31st, 2021. And 4, the property shall otherwise comply with all components of the Cook County zoning and Cook County septic ordinance. We sent out 14 letters of notification and received no comments. Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Bill. Mr. Holeen, do you want to, you're muted there. Do you want to add anything to Bill's narrative before we move to public comment?
Nope, I think he covered everything.
All right, thank you. Commissioners, Judy, Charlie, any questions or comments? Excuse me, I didn't ask for I see there's no one here, but I'm going to ask for public comments. I forgot. Anyone from the public wish to comment on the Holeen request for a variance? Now is your opportunity. Anyone to request to comment on the Holeen request? I see no one out on the line here, so I'm going to close the public portion. And I will ask again, commissioners, Judy or Charlie, any thoughts or questions you have on this this part of this request?
I'm thinking about the last one we did.
Yeah. Well, this gentleman is moving the storage building, so they're not need the variance. So.
Am I remembering correctly? The garage encroaches in the setback about a foot,
It's about 4 feet.
4 feet.
Very
I think-
close.
There's a site depiction included in your documents. I think it's a little more than 4 feet.
It says 90 in the request.
What's tip?
So could be 10.
Yeah, that's what I would refer to.
I make a motion to approve the after the fact variance for the garage.
All right, Judy has made a motion to approve the variance request for the garage with the conditions noted. I take it, Judy?
Well, I'm not sure.
Let's see.
The storage building is being removed. The building permit is being required. And all that's needed is the variance. Is that correct? To allow it to stay within the setback.
Correct, Bill?
Yeah, that's correct. If they remove the water-oriented accessory structure, that relieves the after-the-fact fee. But the garage needs the variance, but also an after-the-fact land use permit because one wasn't applied for.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
So that's my motion.
Sure. Yeah. With the 4 conditions, Judy, it says move the building. Yeah, it states it just right there. Okay. Very good. We have a motion by Judy. Charlie, comment on that?
I'll second Judy's motion.
All right. We have a motion and a second. I don't have any further comment. I will support that as well. So I'll call for a vote. Commissioner Maschenbacher.
Aye.
Excuse me, can I
Pardon me?
talk to Bill a little bit?
Uh,
Can I talk to Bill?
This isn't really the, I'm not sure what's your question, sir?
When Bill and I talked about taking this this building apart, I kind of told him that I was gonna go and check to see if it was possible to move it. And it is possible to move it so that we have 50 foot of from the water. Is that gonna be a problem at all? Or, I mean, I can.
It's a problem with this application because this application says you're moving it 100 feet. Bill, you have a comment on that?
Yeah, a couple of things. And Mr. Holeen, yeah, we did have that conversation and you did state that there wasn't room. The fact that Cook County didn't forward or adopt the 6120 2500, which allows water-oriented accessory structures, has been
Okay.
problematic on a lot of lakes in Cook County.
Okay.
If you have a dock, you need a place to store your fuel, your fishing equipment, things like that. So we have done a couple of variances in the past where we have established that water-oriented accessory structure is allowable within the 100-foot setback, provided it isn't within the shoreline impact setback, which is 50 feet. That's where that distance is derived from.
Okay.
So we don't have an issue because it was discussed that a 50-foot setback is reasonable. But again, if that's what your compromise is, then we would want to invoke that after the fact variance on that structure.
Okay, that's fine. I didn't think I could move it, and I talked to a guy in town, and he said that he could move it, so it's 50 feet away, and so I just soon keep it and move it than to tear it apart, tear it down. Does that sound right, or?
All right, well, at this point, where we stand right now, folks, we have a motion on the table, and the motion states that the number one item on there is it must be removed no later than July 31st. What we're suggesting here is that it be that the condition would read that storage structure needs to be removed from, what's the term you want to use in that, Bill? From the shoreline.
It'd be removed from the shore impact zone.
Shore impact zone. Which would be a 50-foot setback at least.
Yes.
And okay, so that would be a modification to this motion and the second that we have out here now. Is that a friendly amendment?
I just have a question. Does that require a variance to put the building at 50 feet?
Well, effectively, you are granting that with the movement back to the 50 feet.
Right. We're including it in this variance, so it's moving back to 50 feet as a part of this variance request. So I think we're approving a variance for 50 feet for that storage structure.
Okay. I didn't
Okay.
think we were, but
We weren't in the
there any
original.
other
motion.
place to, we haven't given those freely.
No.
I just stay with my motion to remove the building.
Okay. Well,
And
we
we'll
have a
deal with
motion.
what it is. They can figure it out.
Okay,
Is-
we have a motion and we have a second on to approve this request with the 4 conditions as stated. The first one is to remove the building.
Sorry.
That's okay. I was trying to shut mine off, but it's not me. Huh?
I thought I
Okay.
had turned it down.
All right, so any further discussion on that? Hearing none, I'm going to call for a vote. Judy,
I,
Charlie,
Aye.
I'll vote aye myself. So that request is, as written, is approved. The storage shed is not at 50 feet. The storage shed needs to be at 100 feet or removed.
Okay,
Thank you. The last item here is has been tabled, but just for the record, since it's on our agenda for people, I'm going to read this beginning here, and we'll talk for just a moment. This is for Norris Klegstad, request for an after-the-fact variance from the road setback to retain garage modifications and a variance from the road setback for proposed dwelling modifications on property adjacent to Woolston Road. Legal descriptions part of the southeast 1/4 of the southwest 1/4 of section 34, township 62 north, range 1 east, PID 53-234-3410. I bring this up because this item has been tabled to a future date. We don't have a date. I don't have anything more than what I just read you, but it was what do I want to call it, advertised, posted to be discussed. So in case someone was tonight here to talk to this, we would address it in a public format, but I see no one online here. I got Charlie, Tim Nelson. Yeah, that's we have no one here. If I guess I'll call for the public hearing anyway. Anyone wishes to address the Norris Klegstad request for an after-the-fact variance on Wallstrom Road, now would be your opportunity to speak. And seeing none, we're going to we'll close that at this point. We will, I don't know I don't have any more information than that for you folks. It was on the agenda, but it got pulled. And this is, I do have some more information for you. That's right. That's where Tim had sent out a request to have another, we have a meeting next week for Gail. Then Tim was looking for a second meeting, and he's looking for a meeting the week after, the last week of the month. He was talking about the week before next week. That's too late now. He wants to know if we would have a quorum available that last week of May. He sent that notice out, and I was the only one that responded, so it didn't look like too favorable, like folks wanted to have their third meeting this month. But that was Tim's request to see if we had a availability for a meeting, a special meeting that last week of May.
26th.
Yeah. That
I
last
have
week.
another meeting at 5 o'clock, so.
Yeah. And we could have various days in there, I think, but I'm not sure where I'm going to be. I guess I can log on from most places. I don't know what I'm going to be doing at that point, but, and we only have 3 of us here. We're missing 2 other folks. So I'm going to, I don't hear Charlie and Judy both jumping up and down and saying they're available for that week. I'm going to tell Tim.
I'm not sure where I'm.
Yeah.
That's too
I'm going to
far
tell
out.
Tim,
for
he's
me.
going to, if he wants to do that, he's going to have to send out a notice and see if he can round folks up, because my last 2 is not as good as his. So we'll
Looking at the county schedule, it looks like really only Tuesday night is available, either Tuesday or Friday night. Otherwise, there's other county meetings.
Yeah, and this is Klegstad item, and that can
Just the one item.
Yeah, it could go. It's 2 weeks until the other meeting following when he would have a special meeting. So it's not like we're pushing it off all that far, but we'll see. I'm gonna send Tim a note. He'll have to try to get his Survey Monkey or something going, see if we can
Wait,
get
Bill,
somebody.
Bill has something to say.
Bill, yeah, I see his. He's being Survey Monkey.
The June
Pardon me?
9th meeting for both Planning Commission and Board of Adjustments is jam-packed. It's full to the point where we're probably gonna kick some into July.
Okay, we're gonna get busy. Okay, well, we'll have to see where we go with this one.
I move we adjourn.
Yeah, okay, I got a motion to adjourn.
Second.
And I got a second by Charlie, and I vote aye. And Judy
Aye.
and Charlie.
Aye.
Yeah, I knew, I already had you down as aye, Charlie. I know you want to go home. Or you probably are. You're probably in the hot tub. He's not letting us look at him. I think he's probably in the hot tub tonight, so.
No, I'm
Okay,
in the
folks.
Twin Cities and I got a long drive yet tonight.
Okay. All
Thank
right,
you.
thanks. Thanks,
Good night.
folks.
Thank you.
Good
Thanks,
night.
everybody. Thank you.
Bye-bye. Thank you.
Bye.